as so much that this is the wrong way and this is the right way to look at something. It's more about, well, when we talk about it in terms of symbology and symbolism, it's all about the interpretation and what you can contribute to the connectivity between one thing and another. And as you say, I think many people, it becomes kind of a small, what should we call it? An area or a topic can go a little bit viral within this little field of researchers, if you will. A lot of people are picking up on it from day one and then discovering small little tidbits on their own. And when you put together the picture, it becomes like a small, should we call it an intelligence network, if you will, if you know what I mean, almost, which is quite interesting.
Oh, very much so. No doubt about it. And, the viral phenomena, if you will, I guess, that kind of is associated with the internet now, is a good thing and is a bad thing. It does have its drawbacks too. There's certainly a lot of room for disinformation and people pushing particular agendas, people inserting information that may really just be there to muck up the works too. So
Could be.
It's a sticky minefield at times, and that's at some level maybe neither here nor there in the grand scheme of things. I think for me, as long as the information is getting out there, and if nothing more, it's making people think and be aware of the world around them.
Yes.
On a more minute level, to me, that's really what's important, because it really is ultimately at the end of the day about waking people up.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that. I couldn't agree more. I think it doesn't really matter if it's if something comes up as if one thinks or believes that one piece of information is disinformation or not. I think it all goes back to the individual perception of the information. Does this ring true in the larger context of what I've been following myself? And if it does, some would say it's good information, and for another it would be disinformation. It's very, very tricky, and I think that it also shows that one have to be always savvy, or take everything with a grain of salt, as it were, and never trust anything if you know what I mean, at face value, but just keep sharp and
right.
and keep passing the information through the right filters, and it will reveal itself either to be something that is truthful or not, and that's the individual thing. That's what I feel about it.
Oh yeah, I agree with you 100%. So yeah, the Wolf Moon, what was very interesting in that there was a lot of other wolf-related things, and in some ways, I start to wonder whether or not we could really look at the upcoming year, 2009, almost as potentially the year of the wolf in some ways. Mm-hmm. We're getting ready to become completely inundated by Hollywood with wolf-based stories. As part of the stories, we had Underworld 3, the movie, come out about that time. They're remaking The Wolfman. Mm-hmm. That's going to be coming out later this year. The sequel to Twilight is going to include werewolves in it. You've got the X-Men Wolverine, who's more or less a wolf-like character. That spin-off movie's coming out this summer. So we're really it's being pushed on us at some level, whether we consciously are aware of it or not.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What do you think it means in context of the wolf? Do you think it has to do with the the animalistic parts of man coming to the surface, or is this, and that's I guess would be a more kind of psychological interpretation of it, but you think it's something more mythological or even cryptozoology type thing going on behind there? What do you think?
Well, for me, it was really your first statement. Something tells me that it's pushing for that bringing out our animal or more animal instincts, which is a really scary thought. We already live in a highly violent culture, and unfortunately, I think that it could potentially get more violent because I feel like that there's this atmosphere that's being created to draw that out from us. And one of the things that I touched on just briefly in one of my articles had to do with that, and specifically kind of the storyline that was set up in the third Underworld film that just came out, which is Rise of the Lycans. And basically what's happening in that story is that you have the vampires, who are basically represent the bloodline elites, at war with the werewolves, who are, within the context of that storyline, a slave race to the vampires.
Yes.
And so I see that kind of the chessboard that we kind of live in currently and kind of always have.
Yes.
And so I don't want to speculate about it too much, but at some level I feel like that there's a trying to draw out that animal side of us, to do kind of their dirty work for them. If we're turning on ourselves and we're becoming more base and more violent with one another, then they can pretty much do as they please. If no one's taking their anger out on them, and maybe they're trying to get a little bit of that too. Which I don't like looking that direction, but I do feel at some level that kind of future awaits us at some level.
Yeah, and I guess that could be also interpreted in two ways. One way is that we first need to, well, I've said it on the show before, it's like whenever these types of things come to the surface, I also see them as a kind of an exorcism, meaning that they actually are drawn out from the shadow aspects of ourselves, meaning that finally, in a way, they become manifest in the world, possibly, and that will help us to either, recognize it and hopefully not then embrace it, or recognize it and toss it to the side and say, hey, let's be done with this and move on, right? So it can be seen from two possible ways. One thing is that it might be a good thing and a little bit bad for a while, so to speak, but would you say that because I know what you mean when you're talking also about the base, level to how people live their lives in a very much more like an animal than a human being. And in that sense, we would be incredibly much more easily controllable, as you were alluding to before, in regards to the elite, or in the context of the vampire elite, the bloodsuckers, that they can, we would be very much more manageable in that sense, right?
Yeah. And, what you brought up about kind of facing that darker side of ourselves can certainly be therapeutic, and I certainly hope that would be how we would process this kind of material around us. I certainly hope that that's how most people deal with it, but unfortunately, I think we know a little too well that most people are asleep, and if you're taking in this kind of material and you're kind of asleep and you're just kind of seeing it as entertainment, which it is. I'm not saying that it can't not be entertainment, but at the same time, if you're not actively processing
the entertainment,
what's happening on a more subversive or subconscious level, even with this material, that can be dangerous.
Yes, absolutely.
We're being programmed constantly. And if you're not aware of the fact that you're being programmed, then it's going to have an effect on you that you may not fully even realize.
Exactly, yeah.
So in order for us to face those things, which I agree that would be the best way to process this material as we see it around us, I can only hope that people are doing that actively for themselves, and that they're aware. Again, pretty much everything I do with this stuff is to really just try to make people aware. And unfortunately, I'm probably preaching to the converted with most of my stuff. Now, there are probably people that stumble across my website doing a Google search for something, whether they sit and actually read it and it has an effect on them or changes the way that they're thinking about something, I don't know.
Well, yeah, just to quickly interject, there's new people coming, online to these things, so to speak, all the time, and in many cases, I mean, I get emails almost every single day from people who discover the work, in some fashion or some form, and again, I think that we also should always keep that in mind in a way, that even though it might be for the choir, as to say a little bit, that still is developing the genre, it's still developing the ideas and giving new energy into it, but it also is very much for all the new people who never heard about this stuff before, right? They're coming into it for the first time, and in that context, this is great stuff. It's an eye opener, that's for sure. So, yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's one reason why your show is so great, because it does reach far more people, I'm sure, than my work, on a day-to-day level. And so the more people that stumble across it in the same way that I stumbled across your show when I did, the better, certainly. And it's up to each of us to impart this material or these ideas to the people around us as much as we can, without alienating ourselves from friends and family and people we may come across, because a lot of people don't want to hear this stuff.
That's true. Yeah.
They think it's poppycock and crazy and a million other things. But that's why we're doing what we're doing, right? I mean,
well, it doesn't matter in that sense what others think about it in that way either, because this might not be for the majority, at least not at this point in time, but that it's, again, every single thing begins with a small little area, a small little group of people, or even just one individual looking into something and slowly bringing it to the light. And again, what I see as the main positive thing and the main wondrous thing about all this stuff that so many people now are doing is this demonstration of the interconnectedness and how everything, and that can come out of either if you only are looking into conspiracy, or if you're only looking into the more synchronistic or spiritual aspect to it. I still feel it leads us towards the same idea or goal, that there is conscious action behind seemingly random events, basically, and that's what I see as the positive thing, and I hope that everyone can wake up to that, because I think that will increase the quality of life, as it were.